Third time's a charm. Good morning, everybody. I'm trying to get Manny on here. There he is. Let's see if we can add you this time. It says adding. Come on. Connecting.
Yeah.
Making progress. Boom. There we go.
Let's go.
All right. So let me
What's
do
up,
an
Nick?
introduction here. Manny is a Harvard boy. He did his undergrad at Harvard. He then left there, did some, started some businesses, went back to medical school at North Carolina, Chapel Hill, did some time in a psychiatry residency, spent time as a software developer and a virtual world developer. Manny is the smartest guy I've ever met in a lot of different ways.
Thank you.
He's currently a mindset and authenticity coach and the author of best-selling book Thinking About Quitting Medicine.
Yes.
Right? And is the second one out yet, or are you still working?
Yes, on that? Second one went bestseller too, so we have two bestsellers.
Wow,
Volume 1 and 2. It's exciting.
That's two more bestsellers than I've written, so that's awesome.
Thank you, thank you.
So Manny and I met at hypnosis training, and things that I kind of took for granted as being simple, like spiritual principles almost, Manny would then go into extreme detail about how the brain works and how physically those spiritual principles show up. So we're going to get into some of that today.
Yeah.
We got a lot to cover. I'm super excited. Did I miss anything as far as your bio?
Nah, you got it.
Okay, awesome. So we talked a little bit earlier about doctors and the medical industry having the highest rate of suicide. And then within that, psychiatrists having the highest rate of suicide, right?
Within medicine. Ironic, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's like, mechanics having the highest rate of cars breaking down on the highway.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's something
disconcerting.
a little concerning. So it seems like there's something fundamentally wrong with the industry. And so what's your perspective on that?
Well, about the psychiatry thing, I think the reason is that, and one of the first things we learn in hypnosis, you may remember, is that at some point you got to jump away from the knowledge that you have as knowledge and step inside it, identify with it, own it, and walk in it. And just instead of having the second stream of consciousness working, which is the definition of being self-conscious. So one of the things I think happened in psychiatry in particular, and even in medicine, is that as you learn more and more and more of this information, you don't quite fully know it yet where you can jump in and own it and identify with it. So it's information that's out there. It's more objective than subjective. So that robs you of the opportunity of feeling like you're there, feeling like you're present, because you feel like you're analyzing. And with me, with psychiatry, my mind was so loaded with different ways of diagnosing people that I was walking around all the time, going into the analytic mode, as opposed to being present, being loving, being kind and caring. Even if I wasn't necessarily judging someone in the moment, I was running the self-aware software to create a model of them instead of just staying present to be another being kind of there with them in the energy.
Yeah, and I remember you having a little bit of trouble at first getting into some deeper states because you were so analytical. You're like, what's going on here? Yes. What's my brain doing? And so that didn't allow you to be present and go into those deeper states of trance initially, which was interesting to see. But talk to me about what parts of our brain are we using when we're in the analytic mode versus when we're just present, flowing, with somebody with a love-based emotion.
Okay, so we're looking at rule-based parts of your brain. There's a part of your brain, dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. It's part of your prefrontal cortex, which is, it determines the rules that are most adaptive based on context. Now, where this could go wrong is we often misinterpret context. So this is when you jump to conclusions. You get what's called functional fixedness. You get stuck in a state that's not relevant to the moment. Or worse yet, you get self-doubt where instead of going into a state, you ambiguate between two states.
Okay.
Now we all know about the amygdala. There's a concept of amygdala hijack. This is when a story either scares you so much or compels you so much that you get fascinated on it and you forget that it's a story, but you also go into that limbic fear state where you forget that as a story, you're the author of it and you have agency and you have choices. So it's not a flow state. it's not a positive focus. I think of it as like a toxic focus state. Yeah.
So the way, yeah, obviously the way I describe that is fear-based emotions. And when we see our subconscious mind analyzes our situation and then it pulls back all these memories, all these programs, and it gives us emotions, right, on how to respond. So we go into this automatic mode, we go into fear-based emotions, and then those programs run most people's lives, right?
All day.
Versus what's the state? What happens when we become present, when we're filled with love, when we're conscious? What's the difference?
The difference is that when you are conscious and present in the moment, you're not amplifying. Fear is an amplifier of danger. And as such, when you're not conscious, you're either in the past or in the future, but either one is a story that you can't act to do anything about. So there's a certain sense of disempowerment. If you're stuck in the past, you tend to be worried or ruminating about who you were, the mistakes you made, what went wrong. If you're stuck in the future, there's one or two states you can be in. You can either be in a doting state where you're delusional about this life that one day you will have and you're not taking the actions, or you could be worried about not being worthy, deserving, or capable of attaining and then sustaining that level of success and that quality of life and even that level of happiness. We have set points in our mind that will pull us back to where we believe we belong, whether it's if you feel like your house is too nice, or you've won the lottery and you don't feel like you're surrounded by your peers of equals and you don't adapt and assimilate to the new identity, then you develop an anxiety that results in your habits kicking back in. As your habits kick back in, they pull you back to where you believe you belong so that you're in authentic state and in alignment with yourself, which could be like a much less pretty financial and social picture. A much less, you get stuck in your old, weaker, uncertain self as opposed to a certain goal-directed person able to see what's relevant, but not be triggered into these stories.
Yeah. So the identity is, it's the strongest force in human psychology. Really, we all, our subconscious mind always acts to keep our identity.
Yep.
And what's so fascinating to me is that an identity isn't just something, kind of etheric in our heads. It's real neurological pathways, real hormonal, emotional responses that we run over and over, right? Neurons that fire together, wire together.
Yep.
And so that then becomes our physiological identity, and it affects everything, right?
Absolutely. Because you move through life based on what you believe is possible for you in the moment. Your mood is based on verifying that identity.
Yes.
If you look even as a child, like my daughter, she's about to be 4. And her biggest thing is after she does anything that's particularly brave for a 3 3/4-year-old, she'll turn and she'll be like, a baby wouldn't be able to do that. It's very important to her. Also a lot of autonomy where if she's doing something and you interrupt it, you better undo whatever you did to overhelp. We go through sort of that through the rest of our lives where we have this story we tell ourselves. And then when we step into a situation, we automatically go into the role that we perceive ourselves playing in that environment. The problem with that is that if you meet someone else who is more convinced that it's their role, then you're going to have power play in that moment. And then or if you run into someone who has a different narrative, they're going to impose that narrative on you, and your identity feels threatened, and identity threat locks your working memory, which is your consciousness. So now you can't pull up different aspects of you that you like because you're in this fight, flight, fear of missing out, fear of proving that you meet the checks.
Yeah.
So
yeah, totally. And that's how the fear response works and affects us. And I love that.
Yeah.
So the identity, it's fascinating. This is all some awesome stuff.
I love it.
Going with that. I think, so how do we change that, right? We have this identity. Most of it's inherited from our parents, from our friends, and it's not consciously chosen by us to lock in what our identity is. So how do we change that?
Well, you can change it by having a very teachable moment. Extreme emotions create flashbulb memories, and we usually think of flashbulb memories associated with PTSD and trauma.
Okay.
But on the other end, you can have such intense moments like the day your child is born, the day of your marriage, or whatever. These, when the day you left for college, just these moments that are intense enough where they keep this, they change your identity. They create a new file in your story, a new chapter. Okay. Now, another approach is lots and lots and lots of repetition. Most of us don't have time for that level of abstract repetition because it would mean, okay, I have to get all things in place so I have that feeling. You know, you can end up a little neurotic where you end up very ritualized, you know, to the point of looking like autism. But another option, where we met, is hypnosis. In hypnosis, we make your conscious mind, we quiet your critical conscious mind, and we allow the information to go in, basically based on trust. If you meet someone who you have enough resonance with, where so much of their past models are symmetric to you, to your own, and you feel a rapport with them, where you feel as if they have as much love for the vision as you do, and they have a sense of confidence and capability of reaching the vision, where you don't have to worry about them sabotaging it, then you can jump in and you guys can ride synergistically together. So the hypnosis allows
a lot to unpack there. Yeah. So let me unpack a little bit of that. I didn't even cue you, but what I always say, how we change our identity, how we change our programs, is extreme emotional events and repetition, right? And so those are the two things that start to change the identity. And then you get into hypnosis and you can go right into the subconscious. And a lot of times in hypnosis, I also use extreme emotional events. We can manufacture extreme emotional events and give someone a new vision of themselves, give someone a new program. And all we're using is language to go in and code the brain, because the brain makes pictures out of it. And so if you can understand the emotional event that caused their program, then you can create a new emotional event that offsets it, right?
Exactly. Because we're triggered by, we often think of our emotions as mad, sad, you know, happy. But there are so many micro nuances. There's the happiness you experienced at a particular meal. There's the happiness you experienced dancing at prom. And each one has a signature where a certain situation can trigger it by having the factors, and you have this deja vu in that moment, but you know exactly, the deja vu comes to the point sometimes where it's not even deja vu, it's a sense of knowing. And that's what allows you to go into that flow state where you don't have to think anymore, because you're like, if this is truly this moment again, and the last time I went through this moment in this way, I had perfect results, then I can allow myself to run those scripts if I'm comfortable and calm and confident, if I'm in the right state of mind, and I will get those results again.
So that's when I work with athletes, that's the whole goal, right? Is to have them visualize with emotion their success, their victory. And then when they step out to perform, they've been there so many times and with such emotions that it's just automatic. Because when it's automatic, the subconscious knows, hey, if I have an emotion of success here, here's all I need to do, because I've been here before. The subconscious just then it takes over. The problem is most of us, the subconscious takes over when we're in a fear-based state, and it shuts down our, you know, the successful patterns that we might run.
Yeah. Because the second you start thinking in the negative, everything you touch related to that goal changes. For example, if you're working with a team and you stop believing in the win, your mind starts looking at the integrity of the relationships with the teammates. Are they going to blame me? Do I need to start shifting the story so that I can point out who's doing stuff wrong along the course? And all of this, in a situation where it was going to be an easy win, that might not make a difference. But in a situation where every micro coordination and attunement to the tribe super matters down to the microsecond, you being off your game and not being present in that moment because you're either in this future that now you're creating a self-fulfilling prophecy over, or you're in the past in your head like, wow, I always do this. Last time I did this, it felt so bad. And then you bring that emotion to the moment. So you're running less fast. Your timing is off. You're hesitant. You're not following through with a punch if it's a fight. Just in all those ways, you cobble yourself and you start preparing for the failure that you're creating by mispreparing in that moment.
So we're not even talking about, you know me and my stuff. I believe that those emotions drop hormones into our system, which then affects the way we resonate out into the universe as well, and affects what we attract. And I think that's beyond the scope of psychiatry. That gets into the spiritual realm. But yeah, fascinating. So talk to me about, well, actually, let's go back. So you had mentioned that in hypnosis, the safety and rapport was huge. right? And so if people don't feel safe, if they don't trust you, they're not going to let you access their subconscious mind. So what are some ways that you build rapport and trust with people?
Well, I live on social media and I live honest. You know, honestly, I guess is the right frame, but I live truth. And I think that's the bottom line, just striving for integrity, getting clear on what I want. And year after year, anyone who's been watching me on the internet knows that I've been pursuing the same thing for as long as they've been reading.
Yeah.
You go back 6 years, I've been in this pursuit of this clarity and integrity. So what that lets people know is the chances of me being tempted off that path in a micro moment are slim. Now,
sure.
what would falling out of integrity look like in a one-to-one deep private relationship? My clients come to me and tell me absolutely all their business, you know, because that's what works, you know.
Yeah.
either all your business or all the parts of the business you need me to know, and you can stay quiet and I can guide you through it, and in your mind you can work through it. But if you're not willing to access that information because you feel guarded in that moment, then you're not going to be able to access that.
Well, they know you're not judging, right? Because when you're judging, you can't help people. And that's so big. Is I tell people, listen, whatever you're going through, like, I've already seen it, you know, like, I'm not going to judge you. You're human, whatever. Like, you had sexual abuse, you had this trauma, you screwed this up, like, whatever it happens, let's just get you past it. I have no judgment.
Exactly.
That's so big for building trust, right?
Yeah, that's key.
Yeah.
That's key. That's the pivot, really.
All right, so I have a question here from Christopher. He
Dr.
says,
V?
why do we need psychoanalysis when psychotherapy bombarding the brain with positive, constructive thoughts? So why do we need to go back and analyze the reason, I guess, people do what they do when we can just give them a new program?
Because sometimes they won't be able to access the new program. You step to the environment. We have what's called state-based memory, where something happens in your environment, an event. Mm-hmm. You notice that event, and literally your recognition of the event is recognition, thinking of the event in your past most similar to that event and bringing it to the moment, and based on a little bit of reality testing, deciding that moment to be true and relevant. Okay.
So then he says, doesn't the focus on negative trauma or less than positive idea amplify the vibration of those associated neurons? So here would be my answer to that, and then I want to hear your answer.
Okay.
If you focus on the negative program and you're trying to heal everything, you're never going to get it all cleaned up.
Yeah.
But it is also useful to go back and say, this is the extreme emotional event that created the program. Mm-hmm. Here's how that affects your needs and values, which your subconscious mind uses to run your life. So once we understand that, right, we'll take 10 or 20% of our time understanding that. And then the other 80% would be reconstructing better, more useful beliefs, reconstructing the identity in a way that you want.
Yeah. Yeah. And my focus is present based. So I'm not going to go digging into the past unless it's something that's coming up in this moment, and therefore it's not past. If you're being triggered right now, that means that representation still exists in a frequently accessible part of your mind. And what that usually means is that there's an aspect of your current life that you've created to continue to nurture that pattern. You know, whether it's a childhood relationship that you've recreated in your present situation so that all the time you're walking around mad at your parents, and exponentially matter at this person you either married or best friends or roommates with or did a business deal with. It's a matter of, it's here now. It's not in the past. We don't go digging. And my approach usually is something as simple as, okay, let's look at the feeling that's blocking you now. Let's look at that emotion. Okay, let's go back, and I'll do this during trance. Let's go back in time and see when you first felt that emotion. Mm-hmm. So by retrieving that entire set of semantically linked concepts in your mind, by pulling up that whole stack of memories, what we do is we unhook that emotional charge on the first memory. What happens with trauma is that, and this is a little bit of psychobabble, what happens with trauma is your hippocampus, the part of your brain that kind of creates the story that goes up to your cortex, that makes you feel like you have some impact, goes offline. You dissociate. And so you end up with this story where you're not part of it. Now, what the hippocampus also does is it does what's called tagging the memory. I think this may be methylation related for people who are epigenetics geeks.
Okay.
But if a memory is not tagged as a memory, when it comes back up, it doesn't feel like a memory. It feels now. And that may include whatever hallucinations, whatever pain may come back. Your body basically goes back into re-inflicting those wounds. Now, if we can combine that old memory and we can keep you present and feeling safe, then we can hook a narrative to that state. So going forward, not only are you able to recognize it as a memory, because now we've tagged it and we can release it so you can see it coming, but you're also able to you can access power in that moment when it comes up again.
Well, you get to decide the narrative, right? If something bad happened to you, now you get to say, "Oh, look at this opportunity for growth. Look at how much stronger I got. You know, look at how much I can influence people because of this event." Versus, "Oh, I'm a victim." You know what I mean? And and now I'm a victim, and they run that story, and then they re-experience it. Now they get to have a new narrative where it's positive. So I'm a big believer that our body and our brain is an antenna for thought waves. And so I kind of wanted to tap into brainwave states, because I know at hypnosis training we got kind of into that as far as, what's the difference between alpha, beta, theta, gamma, and how do we change those?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the key state that we walk around in most of the time is beta. That's sort of an eyes open, aware of stuff state. If you go into fight flight, you go into high beta.
Yep. Kind of monkey mind, if you will.
Exactly. And then you drop down, and I don't memorize all the sub details of the sub states, but I know we drop into alpha during hypnosis with eyes closed, and it's a relaxed receptive state. And then we drop even further into the delta wave sleep range. So this is a dream state. And then theta and gamma, from what I'm reading, is where our metaphors integrate without a lot of the reluctance that our conscious mind can create. So it's a putty state.
So theta. So here's something I'm doing that's pretty cool, Manny. Is theta state, you kind of are in right before you fall asleep and right as you're waking up. Yep. And so I'm a big fan of snoozing in the morning. So what I'm doing is my alarm goes off, I put headphones in, and I start a recording while I'm in theta, kind of more suggestible state, and I'm just like programming my mind for the first 20 minutes before I even get out of bed.
No, that's one of the first challenges I give my clients is a 5-minute breathing exercise first thing in the morning instead of snooze. And they're like, well, I have the snooze habit. I'm like, well, yeah, you can stay in bed. It's just when that alarm goes off, flip your phone over, and the night before, set your phone for 5-minute timer. So eliminate that excuse. Literally, the gesture that you'd normally use to press the snooze, you're going to press. You're going to stop the alarm and press the 5-minute timer on your phone. Now lie back down just like you were while you're still in that. Is it hypnagogic? One of the two is before, one is after. It's one of the hypno states of right after sleep. You're super suggestible. In that moment, take 5 minutes to focus only on the breathing. When you focus only on the breathing, what that does is it starts your day off with a bunch of loops that don't have the higher order self-defeating narratives. You're reconnecting with body. So now you get in the practice of sensing your body, which is a good way to know your state, but without the narratives. If my stomach is hurting, it's just a stomach pain. It's not my stomach hurts and my day is going to be awful because every day I have this stomach ache and I'm late to work because of it. You eliminate all that for 5 minutes. It's focus on the breathing and the rhythm of it, and in gratitude.
So you're basically priming your day, right? Because our brain, we have so many triggers and so many anchors about our day that we can often get primed to have a negative day for something we don't even realize. This is a great way to kind of offset that and prime yourself to be present, to be in your body. I always say that if we have abundant oxygen, we have an abundant mindset. And so starting off with breathing sounds like an awesome way to start the day. Definitely.
And it's simple. I mean, there's no excuse. It's like, well, I didn't know how to do the breathing. You breathe all the time.
Yeah, of course. Well, Manny, I think we've covered just about everything. Let me check out my notes real quick. So a couple other things. knowing what you know now and your training as a psychiatrist and going through medical school, I feel like just talking to you, you have a 5,000-foot view, whereas before maybe you were down in the weeds. If you want to talk about that perspective change a little bit.
Well, the key difference in my perspective change is that I've come to apply what I know to myself. There was a time when I was stacking tons of medical information into my mind and applying it to people, writing prescriptions for certain things, telling them they should be doing this, telling them come back in 6 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever to see me. What is more powerful to me now and has served me better now is being aware of the things that matter from minute to minute, whether it's, again, taking the breath, acknowledging the pain that I'm feeling in the moment, pausing for a couple of seconds to let someone finish their sentence, just little things that, that from a physician power position, I didn't necessarily have to do that because we had the constraint of time. This is a 15-minute interview, so I can rough you around to get the info I need so we can fill out the insurance.
Plug you in my box and give you a diagnosis and a prescription and get you out the door.
And spit it out, exactly. But now the perspective is I treat my clients more like I treat myself. I don't recommend anything that hasn't worked for me or hasn't worked for someone I trust dearly and close to. And so what that does is it allows me to feel more in integrity in what I do. And I'm able to feel as if when people come to me for advice about something they're going through, they don't walk away from me diminished and labeled.
Yeah.
Because often when you put a diagnosis on someone, they identify with it.
You give them an identity, right? They have an extreme emotional event. They say, oh, I'm this way. And now they live with it.
Yeah. It's such a relief to finally, because they're like, oh, I knew it. And you give them that cognitive closure. And now going forward, they're going to go find a group of people that have the same label. Yep. And that becomes a part of their life. If it's an opportunity to get disability, now they're going to get the disability, whether it's extra time on tests and so on. And I'm not advocating against it.
Their symptoms get worse, right? Their symptoms are going to get worse because of it.
Yeah, yeah, because now you become a master of this condition.
Yes.
You know, you're like, oh, I would do such and such, but y'all know I'm depressed. You know, like with me, I've had several depressions that I've climbed out of. Yeah. But one of the things I know now, like I'm about to go back on the road, I know that anytime when someone asks me to do something, if I start to go into a victim mindset about like, oh, I can't do that, that's a lot to ask me to do. I'm like, dude, you're doing the thing. You know, you're doing the thing. This is the part where you admit to yourself you're scared because the task they brought up is not something you do easily and automatically, and put on your big boy pants, you know?
So, and for me, it's recognizing, again, like radio, like a radio station we're tuned into, recognizing that those depressing thoughts or those symptoms and saying, oh, those aren't my thoughts. I'm giving a talk today in a middle school or a high school, and that's what I'm going to talk about is when depressing thoughts come in, you can look at them and release them. Or when those fear-based thoughts come in, you can look at them and release them versus saying, oh, I am depressed, and naming and claiming that identity.
Yes, I feel.
Like, oh, yeah, now you're just like, oh, I'm just tuned into a shitty radio station. I'm going to let it go, and I'm going to change my state.
Yeah, yeah. Now, one of the things that I want to make sure I point out is this is not undermining people who are stuck in a state where anything that your self model is a process. So it's a set of things that you repeat all the time. That's why once you die, your self is no longer in there. You know, it's a body. The processes are not running. If you continue to identify with and run a particular pattern year after year after year, then your neurology takes on that shape. So you're not going to be able to just be like, okay, I'm going to stop being depressed. I'm going to hop out of that thought, because your mind is going to go looking for another memory and you don't have that pathway. Now, once you've built that set of skills up, whether it's overcoming a depression or overcoming an anxiety, if you stay present to those tools, now going forward, when that stuff comes up again, as someone who's been through those things and remembers how stuck you got, the responsibility comes upon you to catch those early signs, whether it's, oh, I'm not sleeping enough, and I remember last time my circadian rhythm was off, this happened. I'm not exercising enough. I'm not serving people enough. Whatever it is that keeps you fueled, be doing that to the amount that you know keeps you balanced.
So yeah, I love everything you said. And this is the power of having a coach, right? And this is why if people are watching and they're struggling with this and they're stuck, it's so important to hire someone like you or like me to come in and just, because we can say, oh, you're not moving your body. If you were stuck in this body language all day, of course you're going to have depressing thoughts. Or, you know, oh, this is just a simple program you've been running since a kid. You probably didn't even know it was there. And we can shift very quickly. And that's the power of coaching, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that when I can have a 30-minute conversation with someone, and on the other side, like a week later, they're like, yo, it's still in there. I'm like, of course it's still in there. You saw it go in.
Yeah.
You know, and to me, that level of influence makes me feel as if I'm having an impact on the world. And it's just something so simple. It's like, well, have you thought about it this way? And they're like, not ever in 40 years.
I love it. I literally, my whole goal is to change people's lives in one conversation.
Exactly.
Right. And it's one frame. It's one, like, giving them one new emotion, teaching them one new insight. And that's what fires me up. That's what puts me in flow, is talking to people and being like, hey, did you think of this? Why did this language pattern show up? You know, and I know you're the same way, and that's flow for me. So yeah, I love it.
Yeah. My favorite thing is when I can see someone's universe through their eyes, and I can walk around in it and navigate it in such a way that I could be like, no, go left, please go left. You know, and then they'll be like, well, I was going to go left. I'm like, I know. I'm glad you did. You know, just to be able to have people trust you to the point where, to have people trust me to the point where they'll come to me and tell me what they have going on so that I can imagine it that vividly.
Yes.
And then to trust me even further, to hear my suggestion and then implement it, not just once, but enough times over the course of a period of time to get the results. I love that.
I love it. Yeah.
You know,
great stuff. Well, Manny, I can't thank you enough for joining me. As always, I learn a lot from you. That's why I have you on. I try to be the dumbest guy in every room, and when I'm with you, that's not hard to do.
Thank you.
So I would love it if you would put a link to your book in the feed, and then when I put this on YouTube, I'll put that in there as well.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Check your book out. Again, if you guys are looking for coaching, you can get a hold of me. You can get a hold of Manny. And we will take you to that next level, clear those blocks, and give you some strategies to stay present, happy, and fulfilled.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Nick.